WeatherBrains episode 454 for October 6th, 2014. This is our national public radio delivery style, where we don't raise our voice, we are monotone, we speak softly, and that's all you need to know. Thank you for watching this evening. Hey, 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 hey! No, we're here, and it's been kind of a busy day. Had some active weather, but this is the pre-show. If you've never had a chance to dive into this program, welcome. Most shows, when they put it up on YouTube, they start when they're doing their produced show. We bring you bonus material in the pre-show here. See, that's what they need to do with that Weather Channel thing, Weather Geeks, their version of this. They need to just open up the camera, 30 minutes before they go on the air and grab the conversation. This is the most interesting part, and if you don't know, this is where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes. We say things that are occasionally outrageous and controversial. This is not on the audio podcast, and most people listen to the show via that method. So this is only for you that choose to watch via YouTube. And I notice we already have some viewers here. I love it how people tune into the live version here. So we only got two. We're kind of thin tonight. We've got Brian and Bill.
And you're going to have Kevin.
Kevin.
Late, but supposed to.
Better late than Bill. What are you sucking down, man? What's for dinner there?
Burger King.
Are you on the road?
Did you go to those black hamburgers they sell there? The black
Angus?
Black buns?
No.
Have you seen those black hamburgers? The buns are black.
Ew. That doesn't sound appealing.
It looks nasty, but it seems like it's catching on. I think a lot of the major burger joints are using that now.
Sounds like something I would get to gross you out, James.
Yeah.
Oh, a liver burger would gross him out, Bill.
Oh,
one of those calf fries burgers. How about that, James?
Oh boy.
Or lamb fries. What were that? What were those? Rocky Mountain oyster burger. That's what I should have.
It's worth a buzzer.
Yeah, already been buzzed. That's good.
And the show hasn't even started.
No.
Yeah, I'm actually home only like 5 days in the entire month.
Oh, that's terrible.
You need a life, man.
Yeah.
I sure do. Or a new job.
That's my head would thoroughly explode. So the new owners, Brian, are coming into town this week. Did you get that email?
No. I haven't got my new email set up yet.
Well, you should.
I know. I've just been.
It says they have staff meetings Thursday.
That's this Thursday?
One is at 9 a.m. and one is at 2 p.m.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
With these jabronis, and it's like,
no.
I'm out. I mean, it's like, so
well, I think I'm going to be out.
I've got a speech at 8 o'clock. I got to go to this thing at Lynn Park downtown, and then I got a hospital board meeting, and then I've got a sales live shot somewhere. I mean, it's just every second of that day is shot. And then Thursday evening, I got Hoops on the Asphalt, which is, this thing for UAB basketball downtown. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 things on here.
Wow.
So it ain't happening.
Yeah, my wife has her her right eye removed. The cataract.
What?
the cataract removed from her right eye on Wednesday, so I'm out Thursday because I have to take her to the doctor for the 24-hour checkup.
They got to promote Charles to chief while y'all are gone.
It's like they should check with us before they do things.
Well, and that's why I'm not doing anything at that thing downtown, because we've had this scheduled for quite a while. So what can I say?
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll send somebody in there. So yeah, let me get your email, Rick. We got to get going here. See, the problem is we're about to go on the new Jabronis channel now. We're going to go on 88.7 or whatever number we're on now. I honestly have no idea what channel numbers our weather channel is on.
Is there a .2 with the James Spann anymore?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're on like 17.3, 68.3. It's on 58.2. And they just fixed us up in the office where we can actually see all this now. So I've got 58.2 on one monitor and 68.2 on the other. It's funky, man. It is.
But we're
like
on .3 now, you said, or
we're on 60. The Weather Channel is 68.3.
.3.
You know, the cable systems, it shouldn't change.
Well, you know what's funny is on UVerse, the ABC 3340 disappeared completely.
Yeah.
And then it came back in the same spot it was, except now it says something a little bit different.
Yeah, that whole thing.
But I don't have.
It was the whole transmission change last week was a disaster.
But on UVerse, I don't have the dot anything. I've got just the main one.
I don't know. I've got DirecTV, and they moved us from channel 33 to channel 67, which, you know,
Makes
it's
a lot of
just,
sense, doesn't it?
my head, yeah, if I start thinking about it, my head will blow. So I have invited Randy, and it's just, if he doesn't show, it's just the three of us. Randy just joined us.
Yeah, Randy will join us. He was really nice to stand in at the last second.
He's a great American.
Yes, he is. He's been in Salt Lake City for 9 years as the Sioux.
I have not been to Salt Lake City since 1988.
Was that an NWA meeting too?
It was a children's telethon meeting every year. This is back in the telethon days, and so we did the Children's Miracle Network telethon, and they would fly us somewhere to meet with the Osmonds and all these people. And for a few years we were in Salt Lake, and for a few years we were in Anaheim. I think one of the coolest things, they shut down Disneyland, and we all got to go over there at night when everything was shut down. It was just us. And you know, as a little boy, I used to watch on Sunday night Walt Disney's what do they call it? Wide World of Disney.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I thought I will never be able to go to Disneyland. Never. That is a dream I will never accomplish. But you know what? I made it. Totally made it. So it looks like Birmingham is going to issue just significant weather advisories, and that warning that just came out was for Itawamba and Monroe, Mississippi, so I think we're good. Randy, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, man. Look good, sound good. This might be this. We've only got 4 people on the show here. Typically, we've got all 10 slots are jammed. So this is this is your show, man. You're the big act here tonight.
We're all in trouble then.
Yeah, I'm about to say, with the 4 of us, this show might go right down the tubes.
It's like the old days, James.
Yeah, I told those guys, you know, I walked into the Weather Channel, and I you know, act over there just like I act like this, and they got the deer in the headlights look. I said, you know, this thing's about to go right down the tubes, and they all looked at me like, what?
What's the backup plan for this week's show?
You should have taken me as your wingman, James, and let me videotape the look in the head, the deer in the headlights look.
Well, see, Marshall is used to me, so you know he expected that, and I think the producer, this is what they wanted. They wanted, you know, this stuff, but some of those floor people, they were, I don't know, they just didn't quite get it, but they'll figure it out. All right,
has the show already aired?
Yeah, the first episode ran like Sunday a week ago, and the second one runs this Sunday. This is the better one. This is where I really get cranky this week. Oh boy. I went off on a tirade or two, so yeah, this is the better one. Hello to our cable television viewers. Good evening, those watching on the channel known as, in this market, James Spann 24/7. We're about to start WeatherBrains here shortly. If you have never been here before, if you're just cruising by, this is a weekly show for weather geeks. Yeah, run hard and fast. No,
you've been warned.
Weather geeks, dweebs, dorks, nerds, and weenies. And speaking of weenie, look who just joined us. Kevin, you in the dark, man?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting on the floor.
What?
We're packing, and so there's not much left of the office here. I don't know if I can.
Wow.
See, here's boxes. See all that? Empty shelves. And
Oh,
so,
boy. That makes my head explode. So what's your first night on the air in Wichita Falls? It's like the end of the month, isn't it?
I'm sorry, the connection broke. The connection broke up. Say again?
When's your first night? It's like in, what, 3 weeks?
I start on the 27th. I don't know when I'm going to be on TV, though, but I'm starting on the 27th.
So will you invite us all out to be on your program for the first night? We can just be standing by you on the green wall waving. I brought some of my friends from WeatherBrains.
You know, I've given that a lot of thought, and no.
That's why this man is a total genius. All right, so I think everybody's here that's going to be here. Dr. John is out. Whoop, did I say? What did I just say?
Dr. John.
Any excuse I can to play this song, man. I mean, Dr. John Scala is not going to be on the show tonight, but in his honor, on the pre-show, we're going to roll a little Dr. John. This is the Dr. John from 1973, because you see, he was in the right place, but it was in the wrong time. You guys ever been in the right place at the wrong time, like the doctor?
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time.
All right, sorry. That's obviously, I've not had enough sleep here. All right, let me get these things, the recorders going here, and we'll get started. Yeah, I mean, now that we're on cable, I've probably played too much of that. We're probably in trouble. All right, record, and record, and here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Hey, let's talk a little weather. What do you say? This is WeatherBrains, episode number 454. For the 6th of October, 2014, this is my very favorite month, my very favorite time of the year, a time of the fall breeze, the cobalt blue sky, low humidity, visibility, you can't even, you can see across the world if you wanted to. Hey, I'm James Spann. Thank you for joining us, and I think it's going to be a really good show tonight. Either this is going to be the greatest show ever, or it's going to be the worst, because we have a thin staff here. Let me just go through the list of those that are out of service. Number one, we have Rick Smith, warning coordination meteorologist. The National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma is out of service. Dr. John Scala is out of service. We have Nate Johnson, WRAL, out of service. Where's Aubrey? She didn't even send us a note that she's out.
Well, she sent me a text, James, and said that her husband is having his surgery in the morning, and so they have to get up very early to go to the hospital.
Okay, well, we'll give her a pass. So, like half of our staff, they're gone, so the little rats are still here, including the man sitting on the floor somewhere in the middle of Arlington, Texas. This is great. He's got no light. He's sitting on the floor. He looks so pitiful. Kevin, are you okay?
There's one.
Call somebody.
Yeah, one singular bulb. No, actually, I'm just on the floor because we're packing to move to Wichita Falls, and so I showed this earlier, but I don't like to play to the video. But if you want to see, this is bookcases and nothing but boxes in the house, and my computer is actually sitting on a box. And as I was setting this up, I thought to myself, you know, this is quite amazing. I can sit on the floor with a box and my Yeti and my MacBook Air, and I can broadcast to the world. It's an amazing, amazing world.
James. It really is. So we've got Kevin in the dark on the floor. So that's awesome.
I think a bad connection. Can you hear me okay? I think it's a bad connection.
Yeah, you're kind of coming and going, but we've got you now.
I might drop and come back.
Okay, so we'll talk with Kevin. Kevin, for those that don't know, is moving from the Dallas-Fort Worth area to Wichita Falls, where he's taken on the chief meteorologist position at the local television station there. We will pester him with more questions about that later. We have the internationally beloved meteorologist, the man that is loved globally, who just went in the dark.
Well, Kevin's in the dark. I figured why not get in the dark.
Brian Peters, what's on your mind, man?
Just enjoying a taste of fall in the southeastern United States. Of course, we've got thunderstorms too, so
Mm-hmm.
and it's October. The fall part is good. That's what we're supposed to have in October, but thunderstorms we're not supposed to have those in October. Not
Yeah,
typically.
where we are traditionally, this is the driest month of the year. October really is an amazing month. I mean, we can have these just stretches of incredibly nice days where the days are so comfortable, the sky is so blue, the nights are cool and crisp. It's just a marvelous time of the year. So,
Absolutely.
but
Getting
yeah.
a slight hint of color. Not much yet, but just some trees.
I've been watching some of the photographs coming in from Vermont.
Yeah.
Your old stomping grounds, and
Yes.
it looks good up there. Goodness.
Yes, it does. It'll look good down here in another month.
Yeah, we've got about a month to go. If we have any leaves left, it's been kind of a dry late summer, early fall. Bill Murray's back. Bill has been gone for the last 3 years. Bill, welcome back to the show.
It's
What's your
nice
name
to be
again?
back. Yeah, Bill Murray. That's the name. The other Bill Murray. But,
So looks like you've raided somebody's kitchen there. I see behind you. What is that? A microwave back there?
yeah, this actually is Candlewood Suites. So in Ardmore, Oklahoma, of all places. So
So
anyway, they come with a little kitchenette.
For those that don't know, Bill travels around bumming these free rooms, and Brian roams the country bumming Wi-Fi. So I mean, we know how to do things right here on this show.
Yeah,
So
Brian and I
you're
make a good combination. We travel well together.
So you're in Oklahoma, huh?
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. I actually arrived in Wichita Falls Friday night. I was hoping I would run into Kevin, but he was not there yet. So anyway, I asked around, and everyone said he would be there on the 27th.
Yeah, Kevin is sitting in the dark on the floor and with some boxes around. Kevin, are you still there?
I am. I'm sorry. Is this any better connection here?
I think that sounds a lot better. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I can hear Bill going around asking people, going, "Who?" Because it's going to take a big. I'm thinking about maybe just changing my name to Skip McBride Jr. because Skip has been in that market for 32 years, and that's a pretty big shoe to fill. So hopefully, I think based on the time we've spent up there so far, people seem very welcoming, and hopefully I'll get lucky on that count.
So I think you need to redo your image. I mean, you're a new guy. You're coming in the market. I think you should try this as your wardrobe. I think the first night you go on the air, you ought to be in a tank top and a do-rag. I think that will take you right to the top.
Yeah, and cutoffs.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cutoffs and then black socks and dress shoes down below all that.
I like that. I'm going to do that as soon as you get the entire cast of WeatherBrains an appearance on the Weather Geeks program on the website.
Uh-oh. Now he might could pull that off, Kevin. I think.
What happened? I thought you were going to be on this past week.
I'm on like this week. I think they had to send that second episode to the edit bay. A lot of that had to drop on the floor because I went on a tirade on the second one.
It took them that long to edit it.
Yeah, and some of that was focused at the Weather Channel, so they probably cut half that stuff out. But no, the second one, man, I got my hands going, and it was like one of these cable TV things you see on here at night. So. But no, it's going to run this weekend. It's Sunday at noon Eastern, 11 Central. I
think Marshall needs to invite all of us on that program, doesn't he?
He should, because we got him started, Kevin.
This is what I'm saying. Isn't that the scuttlebutt that's why they started the show, because of this one?
Yeah, we have launched Marshall's career out of this show, and now he's in the big time. And no, but I would rather stay here. It's great that they're doing that. And we've talked about this before, but the truth is, when it comes down to it, you've only got 10 minutes where you've got on that show. Where on this thing, we can go on for 10 days if we want to.
And we have before. Or it just seemed that way.
And I hope it doesn't go in 10 days tonight. But Bill, bring in our guest before he hangs up on us. I don't want to chase him because he's the only one we got tonight.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest, WeatherBrain, is the program chair for the upcoming 39th annual meeting of the National Weather Association in Salt Lake City. He is the Science and Operations Officer for the National Weather Service in Salt Lake. Randy Graham, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Bill, and everyone else. I appreciate being on here.
Well, Randy, I had a little panic today when the guest that we had scheduled, didn't reach me back until 15 minutes after I had asked you. So we appreciate you sitting in tonight.
Wait. You saying I wasn't the first choice?
Well, yeah, I was honest about that. And really, we were terribly remiss in not having you earlier because we usually have the program chair every year, a couple of weeks before the association meets, and so this was perfect timing. So,
Oh, I'm very happy to be here.
well, we're thrilled to have you here, and thank you for doing it. Randy, tell us a little bit about some of the highlights, what's coming up, for Salt Lake City.
Well, I think it's going to be a great meeting. An NWA annual meeting is always a fantastic meeting, so that's not really saying anything rare or different, I guess. But we're really excited about the program. I think we have a real good blend of keynote speakers. We're going to start the week with Dr. Louis Uccellini and Mary Erickson. As you know, Dr. Uccellini is the director of the National Weather Service. Mary Erickson works at the National Ocean Service, and they're going to talk about some weather initiatives and some joint projects going on between the Weather Service and the Ocean Service that are pretty exciting. And they kind of get to the real heart of a lot of what's going on in our industry, I think, with interdisciplinary work that's become so important. It's not just about the meteorology, it's about working with other disciplines to really have an impact on society. So I think that'll be a great opening keynote. And then we follow that up with on Tuesday with Pat Boyle, who led the UK Met Office into a real transition from a grid and text product-based organization to a real impact-based organization. They went out and talked to their customers, and I think there's some great lessons from what they've done for all of us in the weather industry in the United States. Laura Fergione is going to be talking on Wednesday morning about weather nation initiatives, which is going to be a great talk as well. And that also gets to the preparedness across the country and how we communicate our message and get people to respond to what are often good forecasts that we're putting out. If you don't get the good response, then it's not really making the impact that you want. And then finally on Thursday, Don Day from Day Weather in Cheyenne, Wyoming, is going to talk about a really neat experience that he had as the lead meteorologist for the Red Bull Stratus Space Jump, Edge of Space Jump. So it's going to be a really great mix, I think, in the keynote speakers throughout the week.
So Randy, say the dates real quick. I know it's coming up in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, the student session, the broadcaster session are on Sunday, October 19th, and then the general session is October 20th through the 23rd.
Now, usually there's something special for the aviation community on Saturday. Is that tradition being continued in Salt Lake, Randy?
I'm glad you brought that up. There is a general aviation weather safety seminar on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. near the Salt Lake International Airport.
So we'll put you on the spot with a few things tonight. Make sure you've done all your homework, Randy. What's the theme of this year's annual meeting?
You know, the theme is really about taking research to operations. That's step one, and then getting response to the forecast that we're putting out is the second part of it. It's kind of a two-part theme. How do we get the best research into operations so that we're making the best possible forecasts and providing the best information we can? And then the second part is communication and response. How do we communicate that forecast to the public, our partners, and our customers to get the response that's going to have the best and the maximum benefit for society?
Well, Randy, I was very honored to be asked to be a session chair, and I thought you couldn't have picked a better session for me with societal impacts. And our own Nate Johnson and Rick Smith will be in that session. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
You're welcome. That's a great-looking session right there.
It really is. It is a who's who of societal impacts and some great presentations. Now, James, we're going to be coming live from out there. Dr. Scala and Nate and I will be there. So. Randy has been, awfully nice to set us up a place there in the Icebreaker where we can actually broadcast the show live and bring lots of the guests that are there for the Icebreaker over and have them on the show.
Of course, probably after this show, he'll cancel that, and we will not be invited. And you guys are going to be banned from the convention. You can't come.
Well,
yeah, this is a test. This is a test.
Yeah. Trust me, we'll flunk. We'll totally flush it down the tube.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you hadn't already spoken to Janice Bunting, we're probably safe. So, all right. Anyway. We are really excited about being there and coming from the Icebreaker. Talk about that for a moment. That's always a highlight of the annual meeting. Randy, tell us about the venue and what you have planned there.
Yeah, I think the Icebreaker is going to be really neat. It's at a museum called the Leonardo, a museum of science and art. So it's kind of a unique museum that blends science and art together. There's some really neat displays there right now on water, its importance, how much we use versus other parts of the world. There's some really visually compelling displays in this water display that they have going on right now. It's a really neat place. There's definitely some weather aspects to it. They have a wall there where you can punch in any zip code that you're interested in, and the wall will light up with whatever the weather is in that community. It has different colors for different types of weather. It's a pretty neat little display. So one nice thing about it is it's just like 3.5 blocks from the meeting venue, so it's not very far away. It's a 10 to 15-minute walk if you want to walk, or you can take a train to get there. But it's going to be a fun place, and after you go up and get the hors d'oeuvres and chat, you can wander through the museum and check things out as well. So I think it's going to be a really good time.
So something that's always of concern this time of year as we get ready to head into the new NOAA fiscal year has always been that we had to worry about participation from the National Weather Service, but that doesn't seem to have been a problem this year, Randy.
No, thankfully, it seems like we have escaped unscathed as far as that goes. A lot of what was done, the group travel went through, and everybody that was submitted was approved as far as I know. So we have very good numbers from the National Weather Service this year, and folks were able to get their travel set up before FY15 in many cases. So we're going to be in good shape.
That's great. Now, so how are the registrations coming, Randy? I've heard some good initial numbers.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. It kind of exceeded. We typically have this dip when the NWA comes out west of maybe 25 to 30% over a meeting in the central and east, and we're really not seeing that this year. Part of that, I think, is because we had a 2-year hiatus for NOAA folks for the most part. So I think a lot of people are really hungry to get back to this meeting because it's such a fantastic meeting. So we ended up getting a record number of abstracts for any meeting anywhere in the country this year. We had over 300 abstracts submitted, and our expected attendance is going to be right now we're thinking about 530, which will shatter the record in the West, which previously was about 400.
Well, that is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to being there, getting there on Friday night, and having that entire week. It is the best 5 days in weather. There's no question. No concurrent sessions, unless you've planned some. I didn't really look at the agenda closely. Randy, are there concurrent sessions this year?
We had to this year. we had 300 abstracts. So, in an effort, we had 215 oral presentation abstracts, or 220, right around there. So it was a huge number. And so, in an effort to try to get more people an opportunity to present in an oral platform, we added some concurrent sessions. We have one on Monday afternoon. We have one on Tuesday morning, one on Wednesday afternoon, and I guess there's also one. So there's 4 total because there's 2 on Tuesday, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. So it's going to be great. We tried to set up the concurrent sessions so the topics are kind of not similar. It may appeal to different audiences, but of course that's always difficult because we all want to see all the talks.
Well, that's always been that way, but it was a matter of time until that would take place, and I can't wait to to plan all of my talks and to be there. So, talk for a second about the broadcaster session on Sunday and their dinner on Monday night, because I know we have a lot of broadcasters tuned in tonight, Randy.
Yeah, the broadcaster session looks great. Mike Goldberg did a fantastic job putting together, as he always does. One thing that he added this year that I think is going to be really neat is he kind of has a hands-on winter weather exercise on precipitation type forecasting that's going to be led by Dr. Pat Market, Chad Gravel, and John Gagan. So that's going to be a really neat hands-on thing. That's an opportunity that's going to be a little different this year. Keith Stellman from the Peachtree City office is going to be talking about the Atlanta Snow Jam that day. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a really good-looking session. So we're looking forward to that. Monday night, the broadcaster dinner is being sponsored by Ski Utah, who is very gracious to take that on this year. And that's going to be at Squatters Brew Pub, a place that's just a couple blocks from the meeting venue. That's a great venue to have a dinner at.
Now, we'd be remiss, Randy, if we didn't talk about Betsy's golf tournament on Saturday. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah. But, Betsy's got it in for us this year. She picked a great-looking course. It's called Stonebridge. And it's a link style course, so you might want to buy an extra sleeve or two of balls when you go out there. If you've ever played links, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a great looking course. It's only about 10 to maybe 15 minutes from the venue, so it's not very far.
That's fantastic. Well, talk about the weather. What can we expect weather-wise generally on average this time of year in Salt Lake?
That's a great question. Usually we're average highs are in the upper 60s or so. Average lows are in the low 40s. It's just a beautiful time of year. Right now it's just fantastic out here. It's been in the low 70s. Real crisp, cool nights. The colors are great. It'll be a little past peak when the meeting's going on, but it could be a great time of year. One thing I did want to mention though is that the meeting date or window falls right in the time frame of a historic snowstorm here in Salt Lake City. October 22nd, 1995, we had a lake effect snow band that dropped 15 to 22 inches of snow on the city. So hopefully we don't have not on the night of the icebreaker. Any other night's okay, but not the icebreaker night.
I think you just jinxed it because every time, there's usually something big that happens weather-wise, one of these events. We had one of the heaviest record rainfalls in history in Tucson when we were there.
Yeah, that was something else, wasn't it?
We were driving through flooded streets that looked more like New Orleans than Tucson that night for sure when we all went out to dinner. And, of course, it was the night that we all had dinner free. So, Anyway, talk about the hotels real quick. Randy, I'm sure they're almost full.
Yeah, we're staying at the Sheraton is the primary meeting hotel. And it's just on the south end of downtown. So there's lots of great restaurants within just 2 to 3 blocks. It's a real nice, it's easy to walk in downtown Salt Lake City. It's a nice downtown, so you'll have great food options very nearby. And then the Crystal Inn was the overflow hotel, so we filled up that room block in the Sheraton pretty quick as we got towards the pre-registration deadline. And so we have the Crystal Inn, which is right across the street, so you're not even walking a block to get to the venue if you're at the Crystal Inn. So they're right next to each other.
So now, Randy, it's not too late to register, I assume. Talk about, about some of the logistical details. If there's anybody out there that is just absolutely convinced after listening to us talk tonight that they have to go.
Yeah, and you should be. As you said, it's the greatest 5 days. It's a fantastic meeting every year. And once you go, I think it's, you want to go back because it's such a great community. It's such a great experience. There's so much great science being exchanged, but it's really about there's such a good camaraderie and sharing of ideas that goes on throughout the week that it's really pretty special. You can pre-registration's closed, but you can absolutely still register. You can register even at the meeting, but hit the nwas.org website and you will see the registration right there on the front page.
Hey, Randy, what's been the biggest surprise for you in an event like this? I know it's just what has shocked you the most in scheduling something like this, and Bill can probably speak to that too, having been in your shoes.
Yeah, the biggest surprise this year was the overwhelming number of abstracts because we had planned. I was the program chair in 2007 in Reno as well, and we expected, a little bit of a dip like we had seen traditionally in the West, and when the abstracts were flooding in as that abstract deadline came to a close, and they just kept coming and coming. that was a bit of a surprise, and we had to rethink a little bit the structure of the meeting at that point.
So Randy, talk for a minute about your program committee and how they chose those abstracts. That's always an interesting process.
That's a great question. So I think we had a really excellent program committee this year. It was quite diverse. We had Jim Steenberg and John Horrell from the University of Utah and Rob Gillies from Utah State, Brett McDonald, who's the Sioux in Riverton, Wyoming, Dean Hazen, who's the Sioux in Pocatello, Idaho. We had Darren Van Cleve, who's a forecaster in Sacramento. And then, of course, we had Brett Benson was involved from the local media. So he's on the local Fox affiliate here. So we had a really great committee. And the way we did the abstracts was we basically broke them down, divided them into topics. So we had winter weather, we had communication, we had social science, we had severe weather. We broke them down into those topics, and then we had multiple individuals review every abstract, and then say, I think this is a poster, I think this is an oral presentation, or I think this is on the fence. And so we filtered through them that way, and if everybody agreed, oral or poster, we divided them that way, and then the ones that were split decisions or listed on the fence, we went back and went through them as a group again the second time.
Has there ever been any consideration of extending the amount of time for especially now that your trajectory, right, on the number of abstracts and the number of things you want to do is going up? What are the plans for that long term?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way we handled it this year was by adding the concurrent sessions. We have those 4 concurrent sessions. But you raise a very valid point. The meeting's really grown. It's such a great meeting and such a great community that people want to be involved and they want to present and they want to participate. And once you go, you want to go back. And so I agree with you. The trajectory is definitely upward, and it's something that the organization is going to have to look at. We were fortunate enough to have a venue where we could run some concurrent sessions without too much of a problem. But in the future, you're right. We might have to expand the meeting, even go into an additional day.
Yeah, you reach a point of diminishing return with those concurrents because then people start running into conflicts, right?
I absolutely agree. It was always kind of one of the really neat things about the NWA annual meeting was, as Bill said, there was no concurrent sessions. Everybody was in the same room all the time, which was really fantastic. And we've just kind of hit that tipping point where we had to go. I think in Birmingham, did we have concurrent sessions there, or did we not?
I don't. Brian, James, I don't think we ran any concurrent sessions.
Not to my knowledge, no.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so we kind of hit that point this year, and I agree with you that something that's going to have to be considered as the organization moves forward.
Well, it's probably good that Dr. Scala wasn't here tonight. So as the treasurer, he probably would have had a heart attack if he if he heard that. So good question, Kevin. Kevin, you have any more questions for Randy?
I'm sorry, Bill. I kind of do, but I'm breaking up so badly. I think I'll just keep listening.
Well, hold on to them and bring them back in a second, or put them in the chat, and I'll be glad to ask them, Kevin.
Oh,
but
okay.
I wanted to switch gears for a second, Randy, and talk about weather in Utah. Obviously, you've been in Salt Lake City for a long, long time, and so talk about Utah weather for a second. What are your biggest challenges there in that forecast office and in the West?
That's a good question. We have a lot of unique challenges, obviously, because of our complex topography. But the really big ticket items out here, snow drives the bus out here. That's what it's a little different because when people hear we're gonna get a lot of snow, they're happy because they want to go skiing on powder. So it's a little different than some other places maybe around the country. But we have really complicated snowfall events where we have extremely sharp snowfall gradients across the city and across the populated Wasatch Front, the urban corridor where about 2 million people live, from Provo to just north of Ogden, which is just a little over a 60-mile stretch, and that's where 85% of the state's population resides. So it's really critical in that area to be accurate with your forecasts. Very challenging. The other two areas I say that we really focus on a lot. Fire weather is a huge forecast issue in the West. It's kind of our severe weather in a lot of ways in the summer, and it's something that we focus a great deal on because you have men and women out there that are very exposed and are at risk, that are out there fighting these fires, and weather plays a critical role in obviously in fire behavior, but also good forecast information plays a critical role in their safety in many cases. So that's a huge responsibility and something that we focus a great deal on. Just if you think about the Yarnell Hill tragedy from last year with the gust front coming through there, it shows you what the potential is. Unfortunately, when you have those folks so close to such a dangerous situation. And the last one I'd mention is flash flooding. Flash flooding out here is a huge deal. We have a lot of impervious surface area, a lot of slick rock and canyon country. And in Utah, we just have people crawling all over those canyons and getting out there and hiking and backpacking, and they're extremely exposed to the weather. And we focus a great deal on our flash flood warning program. But to reach those people, you got to get them before they go. Because once they're out there, they're not necessarily going to hear the warnings. So it's a lot about being able to communicate that threat and that potential before they drop into some slot canyon on a day when there's a potential that they're going to get flooded out.
Now, Randy, you mentioned snow, and Kevin asked a question in the chat since he's having some bandwidth issues. But do you have any idea what percentage of the Salt Lake City economy depends on snow?
I do not. I do not have that number. It's a significant amount, though. I tell you, our ski resorts, there's over a dozen within 30 minutes of downtown Salt Lake City. So it's a huge driver of the economy. We have so many people come in from out of state to ski here and to spend a week out here, eating at the restaurants and skiing up there on our slope. So it is a very important part of the economy.
And that raises the question about lake effect snow. When we think of that, we think of the Great Lakes, but you've got a great salt lake in your backyard.
We do, and I tell you, lake effect snow off that Great Salt Lake is one big challenge. I worked in the Grand Rapids, Michigan office for 7 years dealing with that Great Lakes lake effect snow, and typically the on-off, is it going to snow or not, isn't a difficult forecast. It's how much, you're going to have a dominant band and you're going to get this really intense snowfall over a localized area, for example. The Great Salt Lake's a real difficult challenge in many cases, whether you're even going to get a band to form. There's more than just a lake there. There's a lot of terrain influence that's involved with the formation of those bands. So it's a challenge, and we have to, we see the potential. But if you go for it every time you see the potential, you end up with a high false alarm rate. So it's a real challenge for us.
So Randy, are there any physical processes that are different than those in the Great Lakes lake effect snow events?
From a physical process, not really. I mean, I guess you're talking about salt water, so you have some difference as far as like at what point you get heterogeneous nucleation and ice crystals forming on the salt particles than you do, say, on dust particles in the Great Lakes area. So there's a little difference maybe there, but it's a different lake. It's very shallow, so it responds rather quickly to temperature changes. It's kind of a puddle, it's just at the bottom of the basin, and most of it's less than 20 feet deep, so it's not like one of the big Great Lakes, so it responds very rapidly to temperature changes.
And you talked about fire weather forecasts for a minute, and so I'm sort of fascinated by that because you talked about tragedies that have happened, and generally there's some sort of weather situation involved. Maybe there might be an error somewhere along in the human judgment chain, but weather usually has something to do with those disasters. How much do you have to physically add into the grids, Randy, when you're making fire weather forecasts? Is it all automatic right out of the grids, or do you have to customize those to some degree?
You really need to customize them. So if you think about the gridded database, we spend a lot of time interacting with this gridded database to provide good forecast information. But in our forecast area, we have about 31,000 of those little grid boxes. So when you do a spot forecast for a wildfire, you're getting down to the nitty gritty, and you start really looking at what the terrain effects are on the wind regime. The wind is hugely important, and it's complicated, and you spend a lot of time looking at three-dimensional terrain, looking at where the fire location is, what's the aspect of the fire, what's the upslope or downslope component going to be. So it's really important, and then the relative humidity forecast obviously is very important as well from a fire behavior standpoint, along with the wind. So we the forecast initially comes out of our grids, and then we go in and add value, and then type a nice discussion, of course, to help them anticipate what's going to go on through that forecast period. So there's definitely a lot of human involvement. Those things just aren't going cranking out of the grids by any means.
So now, Randy, I hear that your office has done some interesting work in regard to anomalies. Talk about that process and what that involves.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work with anomalies, and this started with Rich Grum and I. Rich Grum's the Sioux in State College, Pennsylvania. He's done a lot of excellent anomaly work over the years. And so we got together on a project to look at to identify the biggest and most anomalous events in the western United States using the INSEP reanalysis data going back to 1948. So that was a real fun project. We identified these big storms, like the one of them that fell out as the most anomalous event in the last 60 years at the time was July 17th and 18th, 1987, I believe it was, which was the Yellowstone Park F4 tornado event. Was associated with that trough. So it was really interesting. So then we started looking at all these different types of events, and what I love about anomalies is our job is to provide a heads up to society that something significant may happen, And what the anomalies provide us with is this, and these are synoptic scale anomalies, is a synoptic signal that, hey, this precipitable water anomaly is 4 standard deviations above normal. As a forecaster, I can see, hey, 1.5 inches, that's a really high precipitable water value, but the anomaly tells me how anomalous it is and how infrequent it is for that time of year, because you can put a return interval on it and say that's a once every 20-year occurrence for this time of year. And so it helps you get a relative sense of what the meteorological value in that forecast is, and then you can start communicating with your customer that you might really expect to have a really unusual event. And the 2 caveats I'll say is when you see really big anomalies, something unusual and something significant tends to occur. You know, you look at the Nashville flood or you look at the Boulder flood from last fall, you see these big anomalies associated with it. But there's many, many smaller scale and mesoscale events that aren't going to have large synoptic scale anomalies. So it's kind of about, you know, knowing how to use them. But it's something that we've used with some success to help get a jump on some big events and start talking to customers earlier than we otherwise would have.
Now, Randy, has that come into play this year with the couple of Pacific tropical cyclones that you've dealt with in the West? And I guess you have another one coming up here shortly. Is it going to affect you?
We do. That has absolutely come into effect. In some of the precipitable water values, for example, for the remnant moisture that came up from Norbert, were in the once every 30-year time frame or once every 20-year return interval. So it just, you know, those are eye-popping numbers when you're a forecaster to help give you an idea that, hey, this is something that's just, you know, way beyond the usual moisture surge that you see, for example, with a good monsoon moisture surge in the late summer. So that absolutely came in. Another great tool is when you look at like the low-level and mid-level southerly wind anomalies into the Mogollon Rim in Arizona up into Utah. You get a real sense that, hey, I'm going to have some really significant impacts because of these strong winds correlated with this really high precipitable water value. As far as this current system, yeah, we're going to see some moisture coming up into the desert southwest, and it may sneak into southern Utah, but it's not going to have the impact that, for example, Norbert did.
Well, that's good. Now, when I think mountain wave events, Randy, I think lenticular clouds, but they also can have an impact on the ground, right?
Yes, they can, and we have some significant mountain wave events out here. In northern Utah, along the Wasatch Front, you know, the more populated area, our mountain wave events are on easterly flow, of course, and you get this real massive amount of cold air, for example, in Wyoming, and this tight easterly pressure gradient and easterly flow coming up over the mountains, and we can get some pretty big events. We had one in December 2011 where we had winds over 100 miles an hour just north of Salt Lake City in the community of Centerville. And then other places in the state, you know, on westerly flow, we get downslope winds in parts of central Utah. So they can be these big breaking wave events that can cause quite a bit of damage. And when they happen on the Wasatch Front, it's a pretty big deal.
Well, that's pretty incredible, Randy. One other thing before we let you tell us a little bit about how your career evolved, and then you're welcome to stick around with us for the rest of the show tonight. Although I don't know how you've even had time with all the planning you've been doing. Talk about. I hear you've got some neat interfacing going on with the Utah Department of Transportation. Talk about that that relationship and how that's working.
Yeah, sure. It's been a neat relationship, and it's grown over a long period of time. So what we've done it started with us basically sharing equipment and sharing information with each other. They have sensors out there, of course, road sensors that have weather information that's useful to us. We have ability to get maybe comms on some of their remote sensors if they want to put on some road, so that we get the data into the data stream that we all use across the country. So the relationship kind of started there with equipment sharing and data sharing, and over the years it kind of evolved into this. They're putting out a messaging, and people are looking at their messaging on the roads and what the weather is going to be, and then we're putting out messaging, and we started to kind of come to this point where, like, you know, we should let's talk about this messaging. You know, they're really expert at road snow and impacts of how much snow is going to accumulate on the roads. That's what they're looking at all the time. Our mission is broader, and we're looking at a lot more things than say road surfaces. And so it's a real good partnership where we talk to UDOT on a regular basis and talk about the messaging, so that we can share and put out the same message, so that decision makers are getting a similar message from both of these entities. Because as you know, if you get a mixed message, you're less likely to act. And if we can come to some to have a discussion and say, let's put this out for these roads and say this is going to be the impact and this is going to be the approximate starting time. It's a real exchange of information, and there's a real trust between the two organizations to work on this wording together, and we do it for almost every winter storm that impacts our area.
Now, Randy, Keith Stellman's going to be out there talking about Snow Jam. Were y'all just sitting back laughing last January when we were down here botching our snow forecasts in Alabama and Georgia?
No, we weren't laughing. It gets to the heart of the problem. It gets to the heart of the problem. If you have a good forecast and society doesn't respond in a beneficial way, or in a way to mitigate the impacts, our forecast isn't. We're not getting everything we can out of our forecast, no matter how good it is. If you don't get that response, and so that special session we're having on Monday with Keith and Trish Palmer from the Peachtree City office, John Scala is going to be the moderator of that session. We have Dr. Laura Myers going to be there to talk about, how to communicate, how to get the response, how did people respond to the messaging that was put out for that event. And we have an emergency manager, Christopher Grimes, from the Atlanta area, also involved in that, presenting kind of a user perspective. So I think it's really neat, and I think that really gets to the heart of it. As a community, we're trying to put out the best forecast information we can, but then there's that next step is how do we get that communicated effectively, and how do we get response from the community.
Well, hey, Randy, hang on here. I want to go back to this snow deal here, okay? So,
I found a nerve.
Anytime we have a science operations officer, it's like I need to bleed them for information. I need to just somehow suck that intelligence out of their brain and get it into this thing. So here's the deal. We had, in this market, 2 inches of snow. That's not 2 feet. That's 2 inches, which for you it is a laughable non-event. But we basically had a humanitarian crisis where at one point we had 50,000 people stranded on interstate highways that could not be rescued because the National Guard was out of place. It was a disaster. But this is the one thing that was interesting for us. It snowed when it was 19 degrees.
Right.
And I have been doing this since 1978 professionally, and that's never happened on my watch. Where we are in the southern U.S., typically it's 30 to 35 degrees. And, a couple inches of snow, people freak out and everything, but it's typically not that bad. But what we've learned is that the ice accretion process is radically different at 19 degrees. So did you find that to be true where you are?
Absolutely, and when you said the 2 inches is laughable to us, it's really not, because if the road surface is 19 degrees, it's a huge problem. The Department of Transportation can mitigate all they want, but if the road surface temperature is below 25 or it's 19, that mitigation is not effective. For that stuff to really be effective, the temperature typically needs to be warmer. Obviously, as the colder it gets, then the more expensive mitigation they need to take to try to have an impact. But we see the same thing out here. Some of our worst travel impacts and our worst, we call them commuter specials. When we get these commuter events where we get 2 inches of snow or an inch of snow right during rush hour, and the road surface is cold, and it's the same thing. It has a huge impact, and that's a lesson, that you learn over time, is that there's a difference between an inch when the road surface temperature is 33 and an inch when it's 20.
Yeah, and again, we don't have any experience with that. And boy, I know next time you get 2 inches of snow and it's 19 degrees. But this is a classic example of how we have to be good at impact forecasting, because a 2-inch snow is not the same for 2 different events. The impact can be the difference between a humanitarian crisis and just an inconvenience, So we have to be better at impact forecasting, and it seems like there is some emphasis on that now. And I'll say this, the one thing also I've learned, I'm not a highway engineer. All these years, you go on TV and you say, there's a good chance we're not going to have any driving problems. I'm not so sure I'm really qualified to say that. I have never taken any class in how ice accretion works on highways. So my job for the next year or two is to hang out with some of these road engineers and learn some stuff.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
hang
why
out
we
with
talked to
Randy
the
and some of these
QT.
engineers, and I'm going to learn some stuff.
Well, if it only takes you one event to learn that, James, it's faster than I did. So.
Yeah.
But boy, that was bad. And again, I've been doing this forever, but the two worst forecasts, that one and an ice storm in 1982. And the event was actually forecast pretty well. The timing was a problem. But this thing in January of this year, it was a nightmare. And even, Brian, you were working that morning.
Yeah.
It looked like everything was okay. As late as 8 o'clock.
That's why I headed south on I-65.
Yeah, I mean, Brian was in our storm chase vehicle going south. We thought the worst impacts would be way south of here, and we started to see some light snow, and all of a sudden I stopped at one of the rest areas on an interstate. I was going to Tuscaloosa to speak to some school kids, and Twitter was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Twitter can be magical sometimes, and sometimes you get a good feeling. Sometimes you get a bad feeling, but I'm thinking, oh, goodness, something is horribly wrong, because all these images of these horrible accidents and impassable roads were coming in from, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. So I whipped a U and got within a mile, thank goodness, of the TV station when I got into total gridlock and had to walk only 1 mile. Some people walk 10 miles or more that day, but that was a total disaster. But there's a lot that I need to learn from that, and that's just one of those things. So I'm sorry, Bill. You mentioned it's a snow disaster, and that was bad, man.
It's not too late for you. You can room with me in Salt Lake, James. You can go with me.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
I think that's going to be a great session. And I want to thank. I should mention Kevin Bargenbrook, who's the warning coordination meteorologist on the program committee, has really done a great job of kind of bringing this together. And I think it's going to be a real great community discussion, and we wanted to put it at the start of the week because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about it the rest of the week after we see it in the morning on Monday.
Well, and James, I have some breaking news if you'll play the breaking news jingle.
Well, by golly, we'll just have to play the breaking news jingle.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
Yeah, I'm really excited that Keith Stellman is going to be our speaker for the early November local chapter of the National Weather Association meeting in Birmingham. So he'll be talking about the snow jam. James, you'll have to make sure you're there that night when we do that.
I'll be on the front row.
So it'll be either November 3rd or 10th. We're finalizing all that with his agent right now in Atlanta since he's in demand. So anyway, Kevin has another question about the annual meeting for you, Randy. That's are any of the sessions being taped this year, and will any of them be broadcast or streamed?
That's a great question. We are going to record presentations again this year, and they will be available on the members page after the meeting. Right now, there are no plans for any live streaming, although we still are working out some of the AV, so I wouldn't rule that out, but right now we're not planning on that.
Well, outstanding, and it is the best 5 days in weather. If you haven't registered yet, or you're on the fence, I'm telling you what, the agenda that Randy and his team have put together is just outstanding. We sure had a lot of fun when it was here in Birmingham. Obviously, Brian and James and I had a lot to do with it, with Jim Stefkovich and Mark Rose, and a million other people. You can't thank everybody enough for all the help, Randy. I know you're the head of the whole deal, but I know there are a lot of great people that are there that you're on their shoulders standing on this show tonight. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for having me on, and you're right. It takes a village to put the thing on, and there's a lot of people that volunteer their time and talents to pull it off. But the thing that struck me as we were putting the program together was, how can we go wrong? There's so many great abstracts. What made it really tough was there were so many great abstracts. You had to make some hard decisions, but it ensured that we're going to have an excellent program.
By the way, Randy, Brian Peters has volunteered to be your audio-visual man. If you need some help, Brian, how long did you camp out in the audio-visual booth at the NWA meeting in Birmingham?
The whole week.
Yeah. In the way it worked here at the tail end of the annual meeting, we had the satellite guys.
The GOES-R, the GOES-R folks.
The GOES satellite guys came in, and I was a speaker. I didn't speak at all at the NWA. I just didn't want to. This was right after April 27th, and I just wasn't ready to say anything. But I was one of their speaker guys, and I was so relaxed and so relieved by the time the NWA was over. The Goes guys were here. That was the greatest day. I really enjoyed that. But no, it was a lot of work, but it was a labor of love, and I think Randy, you'd probably say the same thing, right? I mean,
absolutely. It's as you said, it's a lot of work, but it's so fun to put together, and it's very rewarding to see what the community's doing and all the great work that's out there, and to be able to kind of put something together to share with the rest of the weather community is a big honor.
Yeah, and by the way, I saw a piece on the news where Utah, they give more to charity and ministries than any other state in the United States. Did you see that today? So you live in a cool place.
I did see that today. That's great.
Yeah, so we were talking in the pre-show. The last time I was in Salt Lake City, I want to say was 1988, and this is probably before Randy was born. So
not quite.
But it was a very clean place. The people were so friendly. We just had a great time. We had some people that went up and went snow skiing, and I opted out of that, which is a good thing because last time I went I actually went snowboarding and broke a toe. But it was a wonderful experience. So if you are a weather weenie, a professional, if you're just an enthusiast, the NWA annual meeting is a marvelous event. A lot of the people that you've heard on this show, you'll get a chance to meet in person, and I think the nice thing about it, people are very open to meeting new people and talking. I mean, one minute, you'll be talking to some guy from SPC, and then the next minute you'll be talking to some big shot with the Weather Service, and the next time you'll be talking with some TV guy, and everybody just seems very friendly. It's like a family gathering, if you will, a little reunion every year. So. It's good. So we got to take a quick break here, and we'll warn you up front here, Randy, that we're going to be asking for a pick of the week here in just a little bit. This can be anything related to weather, websites, hardware, anything you want. So put your thinking cap on. We've got Professor Peters, we got Tony Rice, and the Astronomy Report. We've got a whole lot to talk about here as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
We've moved out of the summer weather pattern, but an interesting feature we often see in summer thunderstorms are outflow boundaries. An outflow boundary is a storm scale or mesoscale cold front that often plays a major role in weather developments. Because this feature encompasses a very small spatial area, forecast models don't do well in integrating them into the output. Outflow boundaries originate primarily with thunderstorms as colder mid-level air is brought down to the surface in the downdraft of a thunderstorm. Outflow boundaries are most well defined when they occur ahead of a squall line or a thunderstorm complex. The outflow boundary causes air to rise along the forward edge. The warm, moist air rises as it converges into the denser outflow boundary air. Outflow boundaries may persist for 24 hours or longer, well after the thunderstorms that generated them have dissipated, and some boundaries can travel hundreds of miles from their area of origin. An outflow boundary can be the focusing mechanism for new thunderstorms. Even a of intersection with some other boundary, such as a cold front, a dry, even another outflow boundary. Knowing the position of outflow boundaries can often help a forecaster pinpoint the location where storms will form later in the afternoon or the next day. Much of our weather develops in response to the larger synoptic scale, but the mesoscale plays a big role too, as with outflow boundaries. If you have a question about the weather, drop a note to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, I'm Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook for the week of October 6, 2014. Lunar eclipses occur when the moon passes through Earth's shadow. Because of that moon-Earth-sun alignment, lunar eclipses can only happen during a full moon. October's full moon occurs Wednesday morning and was known by the pagans as a blood moon. Some are calling this one a double blood moon, as a total lunar eclipse will also redden the surface that morning. It will be visible everywhere but Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Optimal viewing will be along the west coast of the U.S., as well as Japan and eastern Australia. The further west you are in the U.S. and Canada, the higher the moon will be at the beginning of the eclipse, so the more of it you'll see before moonset. The little more than 3-hour show starts in the western sky at 5:15 a.m. Eastern or 4:15 Central as the partial eclipse begins. 30 minutes later, the upper left half should have a reddish tint, while the lower right remains slightly darkened silvery gray. Totality begins at 6:26 Eastern or 5:26 Central. The moon will be at its darkest and hopefully most colorful just before 7 a.m. Eastern, low on the western horizon. We won't know what color it will be until the eclipse is underway. It depends on atmospheric conditions at the time. For simulation of what and when the eclipse will look like from your location, visit solarsystemscope.com/eclipse/lunar. If clouds spoil this week's show, you've got 2 more chances. This week's eclipse is the second of a tetrad, or 4 eclipses in a row. The remainders are April 4th and September 28th, 2015. Looking ahead, NASA and other agencies are lining up Earth and space-based assets to study the comet's sliding spring as it passes close to Mars on October 19th. We also have a partial solar eclipse to look forward to at the end of this month. It will be visible across the U.S. More on those next week. That's your Astronomy Outlook. I'm NASA Ambassador Tony Rice. You can follow me on Twitter at RTPHokey for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
It is time now to talk about weather across this great nation. 6th day of October. I guess probably we have some of the most active weather in the nation right here in my market here. We have had hail-producing storms today. We're kind of in the base of a long-wave cold trough. Temperatures at 500 millibars are about -16, -17, and for down here, that's pretty cold, and we've had huge hail. In fact, even as we speak, I'm kind of somewhat busy with storms producing hail in scattered pockets, and for some folks, they were just buried in that. And we've had all kind of creepy clouds. It has been a day for creepy clouds, and for those of you that happen to be viewing, and I know that many of you are listening, but by chance you are watching, is that a tornado? Or not, Brian? You are our official weather trainer. You are the Skywarn man. Yay or nay?
Not, but it sure would cause give your heart a little palpitation there, a moment of pause to determine whether or not there's actually rotation going on.
Yeah, this is in a town called Cullman, Alabama, which was hit by an EF4 on April 27th, 2011, 3.5 years ago. And again, this is right over downtown Cullman, so a lot of people there were totally creeped out by that today. But it was a day where the LCL heights were high, over 1,000 meters, and we have learned, through going back to basic science, that we've not had a tornado in the CWA of Birmingham on record with an LCL of over 1,000 meters. So that was one of the issues today. But hail was the big story here. We are coming off the coolest air of the season. Did you guys see that it snowed in Chicago over the weekend?
Yes, isn't that amazing?
So we had snowflakes in Chicago. We had snow in Minnesota. Our friend Jason from Duluth, remember Jason from Duluth, Minnesota, the TV guy? He's been on the show before. He had a lot of photographs of snowmen, the first of the season, and we even had in my state, and again, we're a low-latitude state, in the state of Alabama, we had a 32-degree low yesterday, and for this observer who's been there a long time, that's the earliest freeze on record. So it was a chill in the air, and I think most of the college football games were played with great weather this past weekend. And boy, what a shame. This is not sports brains, but
great weather, but not such good outcome.
You're doing just fine, Mr. Peters. Everybody else in the top 8 bit the dust.
So you got the Mississippi State, but look at these weather schools up here.
Yes, I know.
Mississippi State is ranked number 3, and Florida State is ranked number 1.
Yeah.
Of course,
Mississippi the State national championship, James. What are we going to do? You and I are going to have to come up with.
We're going, pal. Me and you. We're going to go. We're going to go out
there. World.
Yeah, we'll be the guys out there with the Bermuda shorts, black socks and dress shoes and our shakers.
Where are they playing the championship?
In Dallas.
And Dallas.
Fort Worth.
Hey,
That's
James,
where
you can do it.
Kevin can get us some tickets. You know, he knows Jerry Jones. Kevin, aren't you pals with Jones? I think Kevin's got bandwidth issues, but no, but Mississippi State beat another weather school. Texas A&M was ranked number 6, and they just got creamed by Mississippi State. So that's interesting. But we're not here to talk about college football. Obviously, with Aubrey out, we do not have the email segment. And you know, it just dawned on me that Nate.
He said he sent something.
He said he was going to drop us a Nate's News in the WeatherBrains folder. We have a little Dropbox folder here, and I don't see it. I'm looking at WeatherBrains 454. I see Brian's audio, Tony's audio, and we got a fog bank, but I don't see Nate's. I wonder if he stuck it in the wrong one.
I didn't drop it in Dropbox.
Do what now?
I said I didn't drop it.
I moved yours over there.
Okay. Do you want me to drop it in the Dropbox?
No, well, yeah. From here on out, that'd be just as easy because everybody else is slapping it there. But I tell you what, let's go ahead and let's do picks of the week. Let's go right to Skydaver in the fog bank. Take it away, Skydaver.
Initiating startup sequence.
Hello, WeatherBrains listeners. You can find my picks of the week at my blog, skydaver.blogspot.com. I'll start this week with a photo of a fog bank from Earth Science Picture of the Day. My next pick comes from Astronomy Picture of the Day with a full circle rainbow. NOAA Satellites tweeted about the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service and the Deep Space Climate Observatory. This satellite is going to be launched next year and is going to go out to the Earth-Sun Lagrange 1 point, about 1 million miles from Earth, and it will monitor solar activity. Tony Rice commented last week on pictures of the Milky Way. I've got a picture of the Milky Way taken just before the sun rises over the Sahara and taken from the International Space Station. I've got a great aurora picture taken in Norway, and I sent out a tweet at the start of the show with my solution for watching the Weather Channel on a television. I'll have that in the blog too. And I've got a bonus link, something about the polar vortex. I think you'll like it. Thanks for listening. Skydaver out.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
You know, Skydaver has gone downhill since that rant he had a couple of weeks ago. You know what I mean? I mean, that was one of the... Bill, you weren't here for that.
I missed this. What did Skydaver rant about?
He just went off on the Weather Channel's Weather Geeks. You know, I was sitting here kind of doing some stuff, getting ready for the next segment, and I heard him talking about sucking a golf ball through a garden hose. I'm thinking, what? He's talking about how bad it sucked. And,
oh, no.
And it just went on and on and on. I mean, it was one of the... He's got to be our rant officer in the future because he pitched a hissy fit unlike any of the ones we've ever pitched on this show.
Best rant ever.
No seal for him.
No. So Kevin has dropped off, but we're going to do picks of the week, and we're going to do some bonus stuff here because we're actually going to end on time this week, which is good because I'm the lead guy on the 10 o'clock news in here, so on the late news in my market. But let's do picks of the week. This is where we go around the horn. Everybody shares something weather related. This can be a book. It can be web, internet stuff, hardware, weather instruments, software, whatever. And by the way, I do think we ought to do an app show one week.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on apps. How many weather apps are there? And we have to weed out the crap apps because most of them are, and we all know that, and find those little diamonds in the rough, those jewels out there. But my pick of the week, it's the WCM page of the Storm Prediction Center site. Does anybody know who the WCM of SPC happens to be?
Mr. Craig.
Yeah, he's been on this show many times. He's typically a guest at the end of the year for the year in review, and he's been on multiple times. We've had Greg on live one time. He looped by, and he's a great guy. But he has put together some of the most fascinating data, and I don't think a lot of people know that it's there. Probably most weather professionals do. But if you go to the link is going to be up on on weatherbrains.com, all the links, so you don't have to write this stuff down while you're driving or whatever. But I just think his statistics and analysis page he puts up there are just fantastic. So, and WCM is warning coordination meteorologist. Brian Peters is one. If you want to know what one looks like, you're looking at him. Brian. Oh, Brian. Can you hear me? Oh, good. He can't hear us. Let's talk ugly about him. Brian, your room is messy. Brian, your hair is messed up. Brian, your earphones are on crooked. He's got a total look of panic on his face. Anyway, Brian is a retired WCM, and Rick Smith, who is a regular on the show, is a current.
I'm back.
Where have you been, man?
Well, these are Bluetooth headphones, so I don't have to have a cord. And apparently I didn't charge them long enough. so they ran out of power, of juice.
Oh, great. We were talking ugly about you. So
yeah, I'm going to review the show and find out what you said.
Oh, you just wait, Brian.
Yeah, it was ugly. But no, we were talking about Greg Carbon and a WCM, and I said, we have a WCM on the program, and you're looking at him, and I gave you the mic, and you didn't say anything.
Yeah, and okay, bingo. I have to applaud your pick, James, because Greg's site, you won't always find the same thing there, but Greg's site is one to pay attention to from time to time. He puts up some very good insights into severe weather across the country. So very, very good page.
But I'm thinking about this, Bill. Yeah, go ahead, Brian. Wait. Bill, look at this. We have a WCM and a Sioux on here. I mean, think of the brain power between these two guys.
I know.
I mean, it's all on the Sioux side.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, so, all right, Brian, what's your pick of the week, man?
Randy, since we got some time, Randy, I was trying to figure out when the WCMs met in Salt Lake City. That's the only time that I've been to Salt Lake City. We had a snow scare, as I recall, during the WCM meeting. It was in the spring, as I recall, like maybe February or March. But I don't remember. I retired in 2003, so it had to have been before 2003. Anyway, haven't been back since. I love the city. It was a wonderful place.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great town. Yeah, that predates my time here, so I'm not sure exactly when that meeting was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm older than dirt. And so, my pick is. If you go to the National Weather Service site, you see all these national centers, and I was looking at the one at the end called the Weather Prediction Center. I didn't even know it existed exactly. Well, I did, really. But it's got some pretty good graphics there and some interesting things on the weather, so I'm going to pick that site.
Yeah, the WPC used to be the what? That's a rename. They used to be something else. HPC, that's right. Yeah. It used to be the Hydro Meteorological Prediction Center. And then they just came to the Weather Prediction Center. So
yeah, I like their name. It's straightforward.
I'm about to say that kind of lays it out. All right, Bill Murray, what's your pick of the week?
James, something that we started as a tradition in Birmingham.
Whoa! You've gone Cylon on us.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't use the screen share. I apologize. Can you hear me now?
No, it sounded like that.
Is that what I sound like, James?
No, well, yours is a minor version of that, but you've not had that problem in weeks. So I think we've lost Bill. So let's go to he just hung up on us. Randy, what's your pick of the week?
Well, since we talked about anomalies, I'm going to throw out an anomaly site that everybody can go visit and take a look at. If you search Ensemble Situational Awareness Table, it'll bring up a really fantastic site. That you can look at anomalies for a variety of weather elements. You can pick whatever region of the country you're interested in. If you want to look at New England, there's a site up there. You look Southeast U.S., whatever you want to do. You can boil it down to a small area and look at the anomalies out through the next 7 to 10 days over your area of interest. It's a really cool site.
Ooh, this is a good find. Wow.
Yeah, that's a nice. I like that site.
I mean, this is brand. I've not seen this. How long has this been out there?
It was the first version was developed by Trevor Alcott and myself in 2009, and Annette Hosenfeld, who was a Met intern here in Salt Lake City. Trevor was a SCEP student, and we developed the 1.0 version. And Trevor now works at West Region headquarters, and he's quite a brilliant individual, and he has taken it to an entirely another level from 1.0. So his is 2.0 plus. But there's all sorts of neat information in there. You can look at the model climatology and see what how far the model forecast it deviates from its climatology. What's the anomaly against its own climatology, let alone the actual atmospheric climatology. So yes, there's a lot of neat stuff there. We use it a lot out here to anticipate big events.
This is just fantastic. Now I'm going to be playing with this thing all night. I mean, this is the kind of thing where I will play with this thing all night long, which is great stuff. Wow, that is great. And again, we'll have a link to that up on WeatherBrains.com. But now Randy gets an A+ on that one. Bill Murray, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, James, sorry about that. I can't use the screen share. Next time I try to use the screen share, stop me. So, James asking, you shall receive. This just in, next week's show will be the Weather App show since we don't have a guest.
Hey, exactly.
Dr. Kevin Closel will join us too, a friend of the show, and I think he's going to be passing through our neck of the woods here soon, or maybe already has. And
he just showed up in my office like Friday.
Well, outstanding. So that's good. Yeah, he'll be our guest panelist next week. We'll be live from Salt Lake City, as we referred to earlier, on October 20th. Then on the 27th, we're going to turn the tables and let Jen Henderson interview the group. That could be a scary night for sure. Raquel Nakora, a past guest panelist, will join us that night too. Lee Hutchison from Ars Technica will join Eric Berger from the Houston Chronicle on November 3rd. And tonight's original guest, we really loved having you, Randy. We appreciate it. Thank you for standing in on short notice. Peter Domasinski will be on November the 10th. So that's just a few of the guests, James, that are coming up here in the future. And I wanted to say we started a tradition in Birmingham, and that was the blog for the annual meeting. And Randy and his team have continued that tradition masterfully with a great blog. So my pick of the week this week is the Salt Lake City annual meeting blog. Thank you for doing that, Randy.
Oh, not a problem. It's a great idea. We appreciate you starting it. It's fun. It's the first time I've ever had a blog, so it's been a learning experience.
It's outstanding.
Bill, when is the Harp and Chemtrail episode coming up?
I'll get right on that after the show.
Yeah. Oh boy. No, that comes from. I listened to this kind of odd podcast called No Agenda with Adam Curry, who used to be a VJ on MTV, and a guy named John C. Dvorak, who was a technology writer. It's got to be the most bizarre show you'll ever listen to, but I find great humor in it. And they have some of the weirdest sounds on there. Some of that stuff's funny. But anyway, no, that's great. So, all right, it is bonus time, and I do have to leave fairly soon because I do have to open the newscast here. But, Randy, let me throw out a couple of questions to you. I like to do this. A lot of younger people watch this and listen to this. In fact, I'm stunned at the number of even high school students that are interested in meteorology that have latched onto the show, and they listen to the audio version of the podcast, and they're always asking, what can I do to find a job? Their fear is that all these grads are coming out in meteorology, and there's not enough openings for all of them. So my question to you, let's say somebody wants to take a track that gets them involved with the Weather Service, and maybe one day they would like to be the Science Operations Officer at a Weather Service office. What advice do you have to give younger people?
Yeah, it's a challenge these days. There are so many highly intelligent people competing for these jobs, and there's many graduates out there. So it is something to consider. That I know a lot of people are worried about it. My advice is, if you're going to try to get in the Weather Service, if you can get in any kind of the SCEP program, which is the student program, or the volunteer program, that's an ideal way to kind of get yourself seen by Weather Service employees and get an opportunity to show what you can do. These days, it helps a great deal to have an advanced degree, of course, because of the competition. And one thing I would point out is as we go forward as an organization, we're looking more and more for people that have interdisciplinary skills. It's not just about solely meteorology. There's also a communication aspect, and there's also an aspect of being able to interact with researchers in other disciplines. A lot of great work that's going on in our industry is not solely meteorology. It's working with other people like in air pollution, air quality, on the impacts of asthma and inversions, for example. So it's have that ability to work in other areas besides meteorology and work on some communication skills.
Cool. And do you think it would help if people knew how to code, if they knew how to write in C or how to develop apps?
Absolutely. I think that's still a very critical component, and it's very helpful to have. I always encourage young forecasters to be as well-rounded as you can. To have as much of a foundation in, say, like that programming, communication, meteorology, doing a short research project. You can kind of build a broad foundation, because you're not sure what the hiring official is going to be looking for when you apply for a job. And if you show that you have this aptitude across multiple platforms, it makes you much more appealing.
And just your thoughts on of operational meteorology. Where do you think this is all going in 10 years? Will most of the public forecasts coming from the Weather Service be automated? Are they going to reduce the staff, or will there still be a need for us real people?
Yeah, I certainly still think there's going to be a need for the people involved. We're a ways off, I think, from automation. To go down that road, you need to have really skillful ensemble output where you could actually get real skillful probabilities from the numerical weather prediction, and we're not there. We're a ways off from that, and the humans really add a lot of value. Humans are great at recognizing patterns, for example, in radar data. And as winter storms develop, and being able to adapt on the fly and make changes. And so there's definitely a role for the human forecaster, I think, for quite a long time to come.
And this is one of my favorite questions for operational meteorologists. What is the one weather app on your device, phone, whatever, that you use, that you open more than any other? The one that you open more than any other.
Okay, weather app, not the Weather Service mobile weather page. So app would be RadarScope.
Right. I'm talking about RAS. So you say RadarScope?
Yeah, definitely RadarScope. I live in the Great Basin, so we don't get a lot of real juicy MCS events. We get a supercell event here and there, not too many. An occasional MCS, but maybe. They're pretty few and far between, so I cruise around the country on that app looking at weather and live vicariously through other CWAs.
Cool. Well, there you go. So we're going to send WDT a bill for this for $25,000. Every plug on this show, it's $25,000. They can, just write us a check or PayPal, whatever. Will be Amazon gift card would be fine.
And we're still waiting for the first one.
I will agree that that is a remarkable app. In fact, hey, look what I've got. This is the new iPhone 6 Plus.
Oh, Lord.
So now, already I've had some people tell me that I'm trying to make up for something with a big phone. That's not true.
Put it up to your ear, James. We want to see how big it looks upside your head.
Yeah. No, the deal with this phone, and by the way, that's RadarScope running on this. What this has done for me, and look, I tell people all the time, I am an anomaly. You talk about anomalies, you're looking at one here. But for what I do in television, I need something about this size, because I can run the radar on this, I can run the graphics on this on a live shot, and I can hold this in my hand, and it really doesn't detract from a television live shot. So I'm in the process of kind of replacing the iPad mini with this. So instead of carrying around two things, a phone and an iPad mini, I've got this one thing. For most people, this is not good for working with one hand unless you got huge hands like Brian. Brian has the hands of a beast. Brian, do you have one of these big phones yet?
No, I do not.
All right.
I have the old trusty iPhone 5.
Okay. So and before we close, let me just go around to the other guys and say, what is the one app on your phone? Let's just say phone that you open more than anything else. So Randy has said RadarScope. Brian, the one app you open more than any others on your phone?
RadarScope.
No. Yeah.
That's $50,000. We just doubled the amount of money that they owe us. So we'll send an invoice for $50,000. Bill Murray, what's the one app you open more than any other?
Well, I have to say that the app that I found really amazing, because I was a bit skeptical when I got it, is Dark Skies. We had those guys on the show a long time ago. I participated in the Kickstarter when they got going, and that is a really, obviously I agree, I probably open RadarScope more than anything else, but I think the most remarkable weather app on my cell phone is that app, Dark Skies, because it gives you a 5-10 minute heads up whenever it's going to rain wherever you are, and it is amazingly reliable.
Cool. And again, we're not going to go beyond this because you say next week is our app special, right? Our app.
That's right. So send in your apps, listeners and viewers. Send in your favorites, and we'll incorporate those into the show as well.
Yeah, and drop us a line. Again, Aubrey's not here, so we'll do a double email. And I never could find Nate's news. Nate said he was going to do a news segment, but I looked in every Dropbox subfolder in there, and I couldn't find it. So maybe it's just my buffoonery, but we'll get Nate to do a double news segment next week. But if you've got an app that you love that's weather-related, then send it to us, iPhone, Android, Windows, whatever. We'll get all those on there. But at this point, I really, 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 really must go. WeatherBrains is on the air every week. We traditionally do this show Mondays at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. You can watch it live through a lot of different methods, but most people go to live.bigbrainsmedia.com. There's a chat room there. And, of course, we know that a lot of you just listen to the produced audio podcast, so thank you so much. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. All of our social media accounts are up on that website as well. And, we talked about Ello last week. We need to talk about that one of these weeks. We need to do a social media special. But anyway, I've got to go do some television, so on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Thank you, Randy.
Outstanding. Thank you, Randy, so much.
Thank you, Randy.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
That was awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all. I got to step across the hall. Good day, and
bye.